I am B. Sean Smith, Executive Director for Delaware, Maryland with the Center for Supportive Schools. Some of you may know me from my time at City Schools, where I oversaw the Office of Attendance and Truancy, and then I did some work with principal support, supporting high school principals, and it was in those two roles that I really saw the need for the topic of our webinar this afternoon. We are going to discuss managing a ninth grade transition with mentoring and how school-based mentoring in Baltimore high schools can improve student attendance, behavior, and academic achievement. Now, I actually thought this topic was so important that we brought together two nonprofit organizations and a school to have the discussion and share some really important information with you. So before I do some brief introductions, I want to share a few pieces of information that will help us maximize our webinar experience. So this webinar will be recorded, and in order to truly experience good audio quality, it would be best if you dial in by phone instead of using the audio from your computer. There is a phone number that you can dial into that can be found on your registration confirmation when you register for the webinar. We've put everyone in listening mode, so you're muted except for the presenters. And so if you have questions, then you can put your questions in the chat box on the bottom left corner of your screen. Now, we hope to have enough time between the different presentations to take at least 2 questions. In the event that we don't, we'll gather all the questions that you guys have shared throughout our time this afternoon, and we'll create a Q&A sheet, and we'll answer all the questions, and then we'll share that Q&A sheet with all of our registrants in addition to the PowerPoint presentation and any other information that we want to share with you. And so you will be hearing from Sue Fothergill from Attendance Works this afternoon, from Sarah Hemringer of Thread. John Engelbrecht is the project manager for the Center for Supportive Schools, and he'll be sharing some things with us. Christine Harris, our senior national trainer, will be leading a panel later on. And we have Principal Somerville of Carter Vocational Technical School, who has brought along 4 amazing students that you will hear more about as we get to that portion of the webinar. And so I am going to, as a self-proclaimed MC for the webinar, you will hear me quite often throughout the presentations as we transition from one presenter to another. And so first up is Sue Fothergill, and Sue is the Associate Director of Policy for Attendance Works. Thank you so much for agreeing to share with us today, Sue.
Thank you, Bishan, and thank you to Center for Supportive Schools for hosting this webinar and inviting Attendance Works to be part of it. Attendance Works, for the folks on the call, is a national nonprofit that works in partnership with the state at the district level, and then really deeply working with schools around the issue of chronic absence, with the goal of helping to improve outcomes for youth and ensuring they're connected and engaged and supported in school every day. And so I'm here to really just provide a framing around what is chronic absence, what do we mean by it when we talk about it, and what are some of our understandings about the academic impact of chronic absence, and a little touch on what we know makes a difference. And so I just want to begin with a definition. Chronic absence is lost instructional time for any reason, whether a young person is missing school for excused or unexcused reasons, or has also been suspended, and that lost instructional time adds up to 10% or more of a student's days on roll. It happens that students will miss school due to illness, or perhaps they have an unexcused absence because they're staying home taking care of a younger sibling who is sick. And students at times do get suspended for misbehavior. But when the frequency of those absences reaches 10% of their days on roll, or just 2 or more days a month, that's where we grow concerned and think of that as chronic absence, because in particular we understand the relationship between that level of absenteeism and outcomes for youth, which I'll talk a little bit more about. One of the other things we just want to be really clear about is the difference between chronic absence, that student level measure, and then average daily attendance, which is a school level measure. And so while average daily attendance can give you really good information about the average number of children that show up any given day, it can tell you, for example, perhaps if Monday is a low turnout day, you could do a targeted intervention around a particular day or time of year. But what it doesn't give you is the information about which students in your school are missing so much school as to be potentially off track academically. The other thing I'll share about average daily attendance, and the way to think about it would be if you considered your average biology HSA scores across your school, or I guess it's, PARCC scores. You would know on average how your children are doing, but what you wouldn't know from that data is which students are excelling at biology or which students are in need of intervention and remediation so that they can gain a passing score. And so that's sort of the same way to think about chronic absence, which gives you that individual student data, whereas the average gives you just an average perspective on how the students are doing. The other thing to talk about, and this is especially true for Baltimore City, across the nation, states have been provided the opportunity to determine what constitutes truancy. And in Maryland, the definition is 36 days of unexcused absences by the end of the school year, which is significantly different than chronic absence, which is looking at all lost instructional time, and we're looking at 18 days by the end of the year. And so what happens in places like Baltimore and across the country, when you look at those two definitions together, you'll see there's a significant difference between the children that, the students that get flagged as a result of a measure of truancy, and as compared to flagging kids using the chronic absence rate. And that is important because if the goal is to provide the interventions and to connect with students who are at risk, then we want to use the measure that captures all of the students who are potentially off track rather than a subset. I will go on to say that one of the other things that we know about chronic absence and why we have in the past not done as good of a job as monitoring it is that we've missed students based on the fact that these absences are oftentimes sporadic and not necessarily all in a row. And so, for example, in Baltimore, when I started my work actually here, when we looked at the kind of reports that were available through the SMS system, we saw that you could pull as a principal and as a school staff the 5-day in a row absentee report. And you could identify which students had missed 5 days in a row. But what wasn't available necessarily is the ability to pull a report that told you which students were missing enough school over time to be academically at risk. And a lot of that has shifted, but that's the kind of shifts in how we look and monitor and track attendance data that is still important to think about, and in particular when relating to young people who oftentimes, freshmen and sophomores in high school, oftentimes think that they can miss a day or here or there and make that choice, not realizing that it puts them off track academically and over time can significantly impact their ability to stay on track in their class. So a little bit of information about what this looks like in Baltimore City. We know that we have a significant rate of chronic absence across our district, and especially in high school, where 40%, over 40% of our children are chronically absent. We also know that when students are missing too much school, there's a direct relationship to their course completion and their ability to pass their courses. And this slide you're looking at is a group of 9th graders, their attendance rate and course completion. And you'll see the lower rates of attendance have a direct correlation to the number of classes a particular student would pass, groups of students would pass, with the students failing 4 or more courses having the lowest rate of attendance. And we know that when a student misses a day of school in high school, they're losing out on the opportunity to turn in completed work. They're missing all the class instruction in their different periods. And then they're also missing the opportunity to know what's going to be expected of them in the next day, including the instruction that happened for that day. And so for high school students in particular, the lost instructional time can add up very quickly. What we know about outcomes for students who are chronically absent, you can see all the way on the right. Chronic absence in the 9th grade is particularly a significant warning sign on whether or not children will end up actually successfully graduating from high school, with less than 50% of the 9th graders who were chronically absent in 2012 successfully graduating. And we also know that on-time 9th grade promotion is an indicator of whether or not students will graduate. And then we also have the group of students in 2012 who were chronically absent at least once in their school year, also having a significant reduced opportunity for graduation. And then we see the students on the left who were never chronically absent in high school being much more likely to successfully graduate on time in the 4 or 5-year cohort. The last data slide I want to share with you was one that was produced that took a look at chronic absence in a particular grade, and then the ratio, the odds that they would be likely to successfully graduate. And when you look at high school, you can see that 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade all have a significantly higher odd of not successfully graduating if they're chronically absent, with 9th grade students who are chronically absent being almost 2.5 times more likely not to make it to high school. So one of the things that in attendance works is we see this indicator as an early warning sign that helps us to understand that we need to connect and engage with a student more deeply. And in part, we want to do that so that we can unpack what's happening and why they're missing so much school. Is the issue that we have a young person who thinks that they can skip a day here and there, and they have a misunderstanding about the need for them to be present in school every day to be successful? Do we have an issue of a barrier, such as a group of students who are struggling to get to school every day due to some transportation challenge or a safe passage to school? Or are there issues of aversion or disengagement? Are there issues of bullying? Or are we dealing with an undiagnosed disability? Or are we dealing with the need to help to establish and provide more meaningful relationships with our freshmen as they're entering high school, and ensuring that they're connected to someone in their buildings that can really help to support them as they experience the transition from middle to high school? I will share that when we think about this work at Attendance Works, we like to think about it from the perspective of a tiered intervention system, and really putting in place first strategies that we know will prevent chronic absence before it happens. What is the outreach that we're doing to incoming students? How are we connecting and engaging with them and bridging that transition from 8th to 9th grade, for example? And then tier 2 is using the data to monitor and flag students who we are concerned about early in the year before they start to miss too much school, and even perhaps looking at the data for your incoming freshmen and seeing if they have a history of chronic absence in middle school, and therefore a pattern of not attending regularly and perhaps indicating some other challenges that that young person might be experiencing. And finally, I'll share with you our site-level framework for reducing chronic absence. And we see all 5 of these areas of work in concert with each other and as part of the prevention tier 1 section of that pyramid. So recognizing good and improved attendance and making it a priority and an acknowledged priority in the school, ensuring we're connecting and engaging with our incoming students, making sure we're monitoring the right data, that we're providing personalized early outreach. In my experience as a parent of a Baltimore City high school student, the robocalls were fairly ineffective in letting me know that my son was missing too much school because I never received them. And so it wasn't until my son had missed several days of school before a teacher had reached out to tell me that he was missing school. And so that personalized early outreach can help to ensure that we're not experiencing miscommunication or lack of communication, but we're actually ensuring that everyone who needs to know in that young person's life, if that young person is missing too much school, is aware of that situation, so we can all work together at the center of this framework, which is really about developing a response to whatever it is that's keeping that young person out, and working collectively to help to connect them and help to address the barriers. We know from students, and this is data, survey data from Get Schooled, who partner with Attendance Works to better understand what older youth think about attendance and what messages really resonate with them about why they should be in school every day. And what we heard from them is that They want to know that they're missed. They want to know that their friends and teachers care about them. They want to hear about, and they need to hear about, the fact that attending school helps to build them a habit that will help them to succeed not just in school but in life. And they need to understand the relationship between missing too much school and their ability to pass and complete their courses successfully and to be able to stay on track to graduation. So these are important messages that our young people aren't always hearing, or not necessarily hearing in a way that resonates, and we want to be sure that we're communicating effectively. I'll share with you that under Bishan's leadership in her prior role, attendance in her prior role, there was a significant amount of effort put into creating guidance, which is available on City Schools' website. It aligns with the 5 site-based strategies that Attendance Works shares, but really is specific to Baltimore City and helps to link to strategies and examples of effective practice in the city. So I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of these tools as you move forward in your work. And also, Attendance Works has information and resources on our website, and you're always welcome to visit us or email me with more questions. And with that, I will pause and take any questions. So I see a question. We would like to look at slide 10 again and explain. Okay, I'm going to go back at 10. Am I on slide 10? No. Is this the slide you want to look at, Bishan? So there's this. This slide helps to demonstrate that there's a significant difference in attendance in middle school as compared to high school, with twice the rate of chronic absence in high school as compared to middle school. And I will offer a couple of theories about why that's true, but I think there's a lot more to do to unpack what's happening here. And so here are some of the working theories. One, we know that students are transitioning from middle to high school, and so that then means that it's more likely that they're going to have to travel further to get to school, and oftentimes having to shift perhaps from walking to school to taking the MTA. I do know that some of our middle grade students take the MTA to get to school, but many more end up riding it in high school. And we also know that there are real barriers with the MTA successfully transporting our kids from where they live to school and back again every day. And so I would say that's one important systems challenge that we experience with our kids. And then there's the actual shift from middle school. Oftentimes is a place where if their students are in a K-8, then that is perhaps a place that they have known and been connected to for a long time. And so part of what we know is that every time a young person makes a transition, whether it's from a Head Start to kindergarten, whether they're a new incoming kindergartner, if they're going from 5th to 6th, or if they're going from 8th to 9th, and then in a particular district, they actually transition from 3rd to 4th. And every time you have that transition, you see a higher rate of chronic absence. So there's work to be done around welcoming young people in that transition and their families, and making sure that that transition is one where we are connecting, engaging, and clearly communicating with our incoming students and families. And I think that deeper work around transitions and really exploring what a successful transition looks like is an opportunity for us here in Baltimore. And then the other third thing I'll raise, and then I'll move on, is the issue of we have students coming into high school that are not prepared for high school level work. Some of our young people have a history of chronic absence, so they're entering 9th grade not prepared to be successful in high school. And so there is probably an area of opportunity around becoming much more intentional in identifying and understanding which kids are coming in off track and putting in place supports and interventions for those young people so that they can feel success in high school from the beginning. I think too often we learn that young people are not prepared further into the year, and that makes it a more challenging and frustrating experience for everyone involved. So some front-end work around transition support academic, and then front-end work around transition support from a social perspective would be 3 areas I would offer, but there's so much more going on that we could talk about, especially as it relates to Baltimore.
Thank you so much, Sue. It's always a pleasure to be in communications with Attendance Works. You guys are doing some amazing work nationally. And, you know, when I met you upon coming to city schools and seeing how deep you were in the work around chronic absence, it has truly informed a city, in my opinion. And I think that, you know, one of the many messages that we got from your presentation is that there are multiple reasons for student absenteeism. And so it requires that a school deploy multiple strategies on different levels in order to effectively combat the issue of chronic absenteeism. So this webinar focuses on one critical strategy, and that's school-based mentoring. And so now we are going to hear from Sarah Heminger, who's the Chief Executive Officer and co-founder of Thread. So thank you for joining us this afternoon, Sarah.
Thank you for having me. Can you hear me okay?
We sure
Hello?
can.
Okay, great. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure everyone could hear me. So thank you so much for having me, Bishan. This is really an honor to be included in this group and share a little bit more with you about Thread. So I think the best place to start is just to really call out the pink elephant in the room, at least for us, which is that most people assume that a ninth grade student who's failed multiple grades, who has a GPA as low as 0, who is chronically absent, who's grown up in an area beset with drugs and violence, is basically a lost cause, that if you haven't reached a child by the age of 5, it is simply too late. And what I can tell you after working with the young people in Baltimore City for the last 10 years and as a former neuroscientist, that is simply not true. And so what I'd like to share with you is both how Thread is supporting our students in beating the odds, but also reconfiguring how our city functions to think about how we might change the odds for all students. So I'm going to start by telling you a story, but I know you probably often hear stories. And so then I'm going to share with you how this relationship that I'm going to describe is representative of hundreds of relationships in Thread that are serving to radically transform the lives of many people involved. So Maurice, who you'll see on the right, is a young man that I met 12 years ago. And Maurice, when he was younger, his mom was a heroin addict. She was unable to take care of him. So at one point, she literally left him on a street corner, and he was had to fend for himself. And because of that, he fell into life on the street. And so when I met him, he was not only in danger of dropping out of school, he was really in danger of being dead or in jail. And so with Maurice, we started off very gradually, very simply, with rides to school, packed lunches, basketball games at my house with my husband on the weekends. And very gradually over that time, what we did was we formed a relationship. It wasn't easy. It took a lot of time. But eventually he began to really move forward in his life. And so not only did he end up graduating from high school, but more recently, Maurice finished his 4-year degree at Coppin State University and recently joined our board of directors. So, it takes a lot of time and it's a lot of hard work, but the critical thing for us was showing up. Now, that's not all. What happened is, as Maurice evolved and grew kind of into his own, he decided that he would keep going on our Thread camping trips that we have every summer. And so it was on one of those camping trips that he met a young man named Malcolm. Malcolm was younger and was struggling in school just like Maurice had been. And as he got to know Malcolm, he decided to do what had been done for him. He started to give Malcolm rides to school. And he noticed that Malcolm's address was changing every so often. And so he started to ask the question, why? Well, he knew why. Having been homeless himself, he understood that Malcolm was clearly without a place to live. So what did Maurice do? Maurice did the only thing he knew how, which is he invited Malcolm to move in with him and his girlfriend, now fiance, Stephanie. And so fast forward to a year and a half ago, I'm sitting in a number of meetings with staff, and I walk out of one of my meetings and my phone had completely blown up and there were text messages from Maurice all over the place, and I couldn't figure out, what was going on. And I'm trying to read them, and it's all capital letters. It's "Get to Douglas now," "Shit's about to go down," "Hurry up," "Get the volunteers," "Go get the kids." And before I could, even muster up a text back to Maurice, I see a picture come across my phone of him and Malcolm, and they're driving away from Douglas. And so, Malcolm, a student at Douglas, Maurice had been tracking what Malcolm was up to on Facebook and realized what was about to happen. And so while other students were getting ready to face off with police, Maurice was driving Malcolm out of harm's way and mobilizing hundreds of Threads volunteers to go and find all of our students and ensure their physical and emotional safety that day. So when we think about what is possible is, was Maurice a lost cause? Was it too late for him? Just because he was failing all his freshman year classes and just because he was chronically absent, was it too late because he hadn't been reached by the age of 5? Obviously, the answer is no, because not only has he graduated from high school and college, but he's begun to really emerge as a leader in our community. And so the Thread model, how we actually do this programmatically, is we have an unprecedented model. So we enroll students in their 9th grade year, students who are academically in the bottom 25% of their class. So in order to be considered for Thread, after Q1 of their freshman year, they have to be the most underperforming. To give you a sense of what that amounts to, at our most recent high school site, Douglas High School, the average incoming GPA of our most recent cohort was actually 0.15. So not 1.5, but 0.15 on a 4.0 scale. And then once students are enrolled, they stay with us for an entire decade. We lovingly joke it's longer than your average American marriage. So it's 10 years. They stay with us for the rest of high school and 6 years after high school. And the key thing to Thread is once they're in, they cannot get out. So you can think of it like a gang or a sorority, which, one of my major life epiphanies as an adult is that really a gang and a sorority are essentially the same thing. I think maybe gangs are sometimes a little nicer than sororities. But it's permanent. Once you're in Thread, you cannot get out. And so then once we enroll students, each student is given what we call a Thread family. So that's a group of up to 5 volunteers. Those 5 volunteers do the same things that I did for Maurice early on. So pack their lunches, give them rides to school, provide tutoring, help them find a summer job. The way to think about it is anything you could envision doing for your own child, that is what we do for our children in Thread. So, we had a student actually who had run away from home and ended up in New York and in criminal trouble. And so what did we do? We got in a car and drove up and went and picked him up, right? Because that's what you would do if it was your own child, and that's what we do here in Thread. So why does this actually matter? Well, it matters because a lot of what we've tried to think through over the last 12 years is, what is it that, we know that our students can succeed. We know Maurice is not a lost cause. But what is it that in the most basic sense that we need to do in order to support our young people in becoming happy and thriving adults? And the truth is that we know, and it's based on the brain. So when you think about, in the most basic sense, if we want kids to graduate from high school, they first have to attend school. They can't be chronically absent. We know kids who go to school are more likely to graduate. So you can think about it in this most basic essence, what we're trying to do in Thread every morning when we go to pick a kid up for school is we're trying to get the young person to pick going to school over some other option. So the other option could be maybe they work a job to support their family full time, or maybe they're staying at home to help with their younger siblings so that their parent can go to work, or maybe they are selling drugs to support their family because that's the only job that they really know how to get at that point in time. But the bottom line is we're trying to get them to go to school. And your brain looks at 2 things when making decisions. The first thing that your brain's going to look at is reward. So the truth is you might earn, let's say, $200 a day for selling heroin, or if you go to school, graduate, get into college, get a middle-class job after graduating, you might earn $400 a day. The problem is that even though $400 is technically more than $200, the $400 comes way into the future. And so the $200 is actually more valuable to your brain. So when it comes to reward, we're already in a losing situation. The second thing that your brain looks at when it's thinking about a decision to make is likelihood. So likelihood is basically the probability. How much do I believe that if I perform this action, I am actually going to get this reward? So do I believe that if I sell drugs, someone's going to give me $200? Or do I believe if I go to school, graduate, get into college, graduate, get a middle-class job, I will actually earn $400 a day? Because the problem is, if you don't believe you're going to get the reward, you would never, none of us would delay gratification for something that's never going to come. And so the way that your brain computes this likelihood function is it thinks about basically how many people have I seen sell drugs and get $200. So if you've seen a lot of people sell drugs and get $200, you have a lot of evidence that that's real. But if you've never seen someone graduate from high school, get into college, graduate, and get a middle-class job, it's like me telling one of you to like fly to the moon tomorrow because, you know, you'd have a great time. They don't believe it's real. They have no evidence that it's real. And so what happens with our young people often in this most basic decision of getting them to go to school is the data is stuck against us, right? And so what does THREAD do? What THREAD does is we try to influence the reward and the likelihood function. So when you go to pick a kid up for school, if you bring breakfast, if you allow them to have a place to do their laundry, it's a lot easier to go to school if you are not hungry and you've eaten that morning. It is a lot easier to go to school if you are wearing clean clothes and not being worried about being made fun of because you smell bad. It is a lot easier to go to school if you have a ride instead of having to take 3 buses. And so that's what we do in THREAD. We provide reward in real time so that we can try to influence the decision-making of our young people. The second thing is the likelihood function. So how do we actually provide data points that show that it is possible to graduate from high school, get into college, graduate, and get a middle-class job? Well, that comes back down to our basic model. So remember, you have each student has a group of up to 5 volunteers. Those 5 volunteers do whatever it takes. Not only that, but we have a second layer of support, which are called resource teams. Resource teams are specialists in different areas: legal, health, housing, academic, community service, team building. Those experts, if a student's being evicted, instead of having the 5 volunteers have to figure out how to prevent an eviction, they just call someone who's also a volunteer at THREAD on the legal team, and the legal team connects them with a pro bono attorney in the community who helps to prevent the eviction. Now, not only does this model and process help to prevent an eviction, it does something else that's really critical, which is it puts an attorney in the same room as the parents, the student, volunteer. And now all of a sudden, if you think about it, you're providing data points and building relationships between our students and people that have graduated from high school, gotten into college, gotten a degree, and found that middle-class job. And so we're presenting evidence that it is possible, and here's how to do it. So what does that amount to in THREAD over the last 12 years? The most important thing that we focus on is that we've retained 100% of the students we've ever enrolled. So we have never let go of a single student. Because of that, 92% of our students have graduated from high school within 5 years of joining THREAD. Again, these are students coming in with GPAs as low as 0, but they are completely capable. They are truly exemplary individuals. They're just in extraordinary situations. But when you remove some of those challenges outside of the classroom and allow them to have the time and space to focus on their academics and their civics, they do. In addition, of our alumni, actually 80% of our students received a 4 two-year college degree or certification within 6 years of graduating high school. Again, when you think about what the national average is, even independent of race and class, less than 50% of students who start college graduate within 6 years, and yet our students are doing it at a rate of 80%. So what does this all amount to? Well, for us, it amounts to a broader movement in Baltimore when we're thinking about what's next. Why? Because we know what it takes to actually end up with happy, healthy adults. You just need one consistent, caring adult in each young person's life. When you think about, again, in Baltimore, we have approximately 400,000 to 500,000 adults, 80,000 students in the school system. The math should actually work in our favor. We should, in theory, actually have extra adults that can provide that one consistent, caring adult in each student's life. And yet you have to ask yourself, where are all the adults? Is it just that they're lazy and don't want to help? No. The problem is that the adults are working with the same information that the students are. So if you thought a young person was going to end up dead or in jail, why would you ever take time away from your family, your job, your spiritual life in order to pick them up and drive them to school? But if you had evidence, right, if you knew that doing that would amount to something that could save a young person's life, you would do it. And so that's what's happened. Because our young people have succeeded, students like Marie, students like Malcolm, graduating from high school, graduating from college, what that has amounted to is now Thread is a community that's serving over 300 students this year at 3 schools with over 1,000 volunteers and collaborators. And those people have been mobilized because what Maurice and Malcolm have done, and students like them, is they have created, they are the data points. They are the data points that show us that it's not only possible, but it's actually happening, and that no child is a lost cause. So what's next for Thread? We are actually working to eventually reach scale in Baltimore City. We would like to, at scale, serve 5% of every freshman class across the district. That would mean enrolling every year 300 students. So we would have a total of 3,000 students in Thread. What's important about that is to actually get to that scale, we'd have to weave relationships between our students, 3,000 students, 7,000 volunteers. If we could get to that scale and maintain these same outcomes, 2 things would happen. First, we would materially shift the high school graduation rate in the city. The second is, if you add up the 3,000 students, the 7,000 volunteers, the adult counterparts and their families, those of our collaborators, donors, board member staff, we would be a community of about 20,000 people all in. And so 20,000 people, I mean, that's not only 5% of every freshman class in the school district, that's actually 5% of the entire adult population in our city. So when you think about the feeding a movement where we actually have a more just and equitable society, where we actually bring our city together, where we actually see what was intended in the civil rights movement, where you have relationships that transcend lines of race and class. I mean, we are more segregated today than we were in 1964. We are both segregated by race and by class. What Thread is working to do is to give people space to get to know one another, to build relationships. These relationships transcend lines of race and class. They bring our students closer to one another, to their families, to our volunteers, to our collaborators, and they enrich the lives of everyone involved. And what they're doing is helping bring our city together. So I'll pause and take questions.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for that extremely engaging conversation. We do have one question, and in fact, we have time to only take one question. The question is, how is Thread funded?
We've been really fortunate. We have received support. We're not publicly funded, so we don't receive any city, state, or federal dollars. We receive philanthropic donations from individuals, corporations, and foundations, mostly locally, but some now on the national stage.
Okay, thank you. I want to share 3 things that and I'm only sharing 3, but I got a ton of things. But for the sake of time, I'm only going to share 3 things that I pulled from your presentation, Sarah. Is one, that our young people are facing real logical dilemmas that adults need to work harder to understand. The second was that it's never too late to be a transformative figure in a young person's life. And number 3 is that relationships matter. And I want to insert this because you shared that you too are connecting with young people in a 9th grade. I think that even as adults, we would all have to admit that transitions in our lives can be challenging. And so we should be more empathetic and compassionate to young people that are struggling with transitions, that don't have the resources, the cognitive abilities, or even the capability to manage life the way that they wish they could. And so we're going to transition to the Center for Supportive Schools and the Peer Group Connection Program, right, that I believe meets young people where they are, that speaks to being a transformative agent in a young person's life. And John Engelbrecht, who is the project manager for Maryland with the Center for Supportive Schools, is going to speak to us more about the Peer Group Connection. So thank you, John.
Thank you, Visha. Peer Group Connection, or PGC as we call it, is the flagship program offered by the Center for Supportive Schools. As we saw earlier, the program is in over 200 schools, and as you can imagine, that didn't happen overnight. PGC has been growing in these schools since 1979. Let's let that sink in, because that's almost 40 years. What else has lasted in schools for that much time? In our faculty advisor trainings, we watch a video from the first PGC circles, and you can see an overhead projector in the room. We all remember those, don't we? And as that video indicates, there are definitely some fashion choices and hairstyles for back then we might rather forget. But since then, so much has changed in our schools, but PGC remains a successful and sustainable student-centered solution. Lately, it feels like these changes are on high speed. Every week we hear about the latest debate, whether it's about homework or assessments, schedules, and so on. The debates go on and always change and never seem to settle before we're on to the next one. But what we can all agree on is that our students need and truly deserve a safe time and space to receive support on what really affects them, the things that keep them up at night, the things that make it hard to get out of bed in the morning. Just last Wednesday, I sat with a group of young people. One said, "So much of the work we see is around us as students, but who is working for us as people? They want us to get ready for college or careers so we can be a good citizen, but no one really gets us ready to just be a person, to be someone's neighbor." Another said, "I keep hearing test scores and GPAs and percentages and numbers, but I'm more than just a part of these numbers. I'm an actual person. They focus so much on what we do in class and what we're going to do in the future, but I'm more focused on what happened to me at home last night. That's always going to get in the way of anything I want to do today. That's what I need to talk about." PGC is the place to talk about that. As Sue said, the transition from one school to the next is an important time in any student's life, and PGC leverages that time. In PGC, 2 faculty advisors empower upperclassmen, 8th graders in middle school, and 11th or 12th graders in high school, and train them in leadership and facilitation skills on a daily class. Once each week, these peer leaders meet with a group of 10 to 14 of the new 6th or 9th graders and lead them on what we call outreaches to provide students with a supportive community to develop on a social and emotional level in order to help them feel safe and supported in schools. As you can see, PGC is currently in 13 high schools throughout Baltimore City. We continue to grow and are exploring options for bringing the middle school model to the city as well. What does PGC do for these schools? Analysis of the most recently available data shows that schools with PGC show a substantial improvement in attendance rates, chronic absenteeism, and on-time promotion. In this next slide, we highlight Carver, which is one of our model PGC schools, and you'll have the pleasure of hearing from some of their young people very shortly. Overall, PGC students feel more safe and connected with their school community, which results in a more engaged and supportive school. We see higher grades, better attendance, fewer discipline referrals, and improved connections, not only between peers, but between the peers and their adults. Up next, we have a video from a PGC circle at Coppin Academy. At this time, we ask that everyone make sure that their computer's audio is turned on so that you can enjoy seeing PGC in action.
Hi, I'm Naeem Smith here with the City School Student Media, and we're here in the PGC class at Coppin Academy High School discussing safety first. Let's check it out.
Excited about college and I'm winding down to my school that I want to attend.
PGC stands for Peer Group Connection, a program designed to engage students in activities to address issues that are known to help reduce risk behavior and produce positive outcomes. From conflict resolution to decision-making skills to feeling included, PGC can have a huge impact.
Getting to learn how to matriculate through high school, how to talk to certain teachers and peers within their grade level, and they get to kind of open up and express how they feel without it getting out in the hallway amongst other students.
It allows the peer leaders first to build a relationship of connectedness, then it allows them to create their own separate pockets of families in schools.
In addressing the topic of safety, the juniors and seniors in PGC go through the lesson first and make sure the activity is ready for the freshmen. So right now we're basically placing these scenarios on either completely unsafe, neutral, and completely safe.
They should learn that safety is critical. It's critical to their education. It's critical for life. Like, you need to be safe. If you don't feel safe, you don't feel comfortable. If you don't feel comfortable, how can you function?
Just to be safe anywhere you go, to be safe, and within yourself, and around others too.
Especially coming from middle school, coming into the 9th grade, to start growing, to be able to talk, to be able to look at real life situations and have some say in them.
This gives us a platform to be able to share the experiences with freshmen and be able to have a forum to have open dialogue.
If it do start an altercation, then you know that's not your real friend. So either way, it's a positive outcome.
It doesn't matter how you're used to doing it for a long time, so you're safe doing it, you know how to handle it, but it's just not safe, period.
So just because an adult does it, doesn't make it any safer than when a young person does it.
As you can see, the conversation is getting really good. We're just trying to make sure that we have everything ready for the freshmen on Thursday. So today is the big day where PGC is teaching the lesson on safety first to the freshmen. Let's see how it goes. Can somebody share what do you think it means to be safe?
To be protected.
I mean, not as safe as I used to feel a long time ago in other communities that I used to live in.
The outreach lessons taught in PGC prepare students for issues they may face outside of school. From completely unsafe to completely safe, the different scenario cards puts real life situations at the forefront, and some can spark real debates.
Mine was having a Facebook page, and I said that was neutral because I think it's all about how you act on Facebook.
If you send pictures or something, you can get exposed, and it shares and travels, and you can be embarrassed to come to school because everybody is going to be the talk.
If you do accept a random friend request or whatever, make sure it's on a social media that don't really have personal information and stuff on it.
With social media, a line that needs to be set in place, because you can't trust everybody that comes and follows you and stuff like that. You can't trust everybody, and they don't realize that right now because they just want the followers.
To get it out and not keep it in bottled up to where it explodes at a different point in the classroom or out in the hallway or out in the streets. So I think by them being able to speak to one another, it kind of lets it out and they can express how they feel.
Wearing gang colors wouldn't be a good thing because it would cause them not to come to school because what if they got shot by somebody that thought they was actually part of a gang.
You're gang affiliated in the school. You can wear the colors since that's your school and that's your gang. So it doesn't really matter.
I can't wear a red bandana just because it's a gang member here.
So remember, we're talking about safety in school and out of school.
Me hearing things about the communities in Baltimore, it really opens myself up to different places and how it should be and the customs here.
We have a lot of safety issues in Baltimore City, and I feel like the issues that we talked about helped me throughout the city, like walking at night.
Evaluation results of freshman participants in PGC show increased graduation rates, fewer discipline issues, and stronger goal-setting skills, to name just a few benefits.
High school was a little bit harder than I expected, and PGC, it lets me talk about the way I feel about high school and the way high school is, and my opinion on high school. So it relieves a lot of things that are on my mind. I hope that more things like PGC open up as I go into a higher grade so it can dive into a better future.
When I first got here, I was scared because I didn't come to summer school, and it was like everybody knew everybody, and I was just the outcast. But when we got PGC, I started to know people more. Like everybody in my group I didn't know at first. I feel like I know them now more than I did before.
To talk to not, just an adult, but a student that can also relate to you and some of your problems that you might be having.
So I think it's very effective having seniors talk to the freshmen, so it kind of gives them an opportunity to change and be something different that they thought they could not be starting out.
For the juniors and seniors, PGC is a big part of their lives, and they care deeply about helping each other.
I think I've gained a sense of maturity because it's some things that I wouldn't want my freshmen to see or hear that I'm doing. So it's just helping me to mature, within myself.
I've gained communication skills. I've gained confidence in being able to talk to people and look people in their eyes. I've gained facilitation skills.
This has been an amazing experience for the past 2 days, discussing with the freshmen about safety first and what safety means both in school and out of school. I believe PGC is a perfect program to have in our high schools. To me, this has been a great experience this past year, being a peer leader myself. I hope that all schools have programs like PGC, and this is a program that continues from years and years and years to come. This is Naeem from Baltimore City Student Media Team. I'm gone.
Thank you for that wonderful presentation, John. And I really hope that our participants enjoyed that video as much as I do. I never get tired of watching that video. It was actually recorded by the Baltimore City Student Media Team. The Center for Supportive Schools had nothing to do with it, so it is absolutely the best free promotional tool we've ever received. And we've taken that video to the White House. We had the pleasure of presenting in June, and we showed the video there. And anywhere I go to talk about PGC, I bring the young people in that form with me. And so I hope you enjoyed it as much as I always do. And now we are moving towards the end of our webinar, and we saved the best for last. And I think everyone that has gone before this moment will agree that we've saved the best for last. We are going to have the opportunity to hear from 4 11th grade peer leaders from Carver. As John shared in his presentation, Carver is one of our model schools, and Principal Fiance Somerville agreed to share with us her experience with PGC and allow 4 of the peer leaders to discuss their experience. The panel will be facilitated by our very own Christine Harris, who is our senior national trainer, and I'm going to turn it over to Christine.
Thank you so much, Bishan, and we are really in for a treat. I've been able to spend a little time with these young ladies, and I know they have a lot of wonderful things to share with us. So we are going to open up our panel by hearing a little bit from Principal Somerville. Principal Somerville, could you just maybe share anything you would like to share with the panel, with the participants about yourself, and also tell us a little bit about your school?
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So first, before I start about the school, we're also joined by Mr. Moe. He's actually our PGC coordinator for the school. Mr. Moe is an administrator at the school, and he's been the PGC coordinator for the last 4 years since we've started PGC, and he's doing a wonderful job. So PGC would not have happened without Mr. Moe, and I know he's in the room. We're actually in separate rooms right now, so I just wanted to give a shout out to Mr. Moe.
I'm here. I'm back. I'm here. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So a little bit about Carver. Carver is located in West Baltimore, and although we're located in West Baltimore, our students come from all over the city. We are a citywide CTE school, career technology school, that has students that apply and have to we have entry criteria. So students apply, and if they're accepted, then they can come from anywhere in the city to attend Carver to study one of our 13 CTE programs. And I'm going to name the CTE programs. I have a cheat sheet here because sometimes I forget. So we have culinary cosmetology, childcare, Cisco, computer-aided drafting and design, business, masonry, electrical wiring, manufacturing, carpentry, graphic communications, and JROTC. So what a CTE school is, for those of you who don't know, at the end of the 4 years, students receive a Maryland high school diploma, and they also receive certification in one of those CTE areas. Most of our students will receive their certification in 11th grade, but we do have a couple of programs that require a certain number of hours. That would be such as cosmetology and childcare. So those students receive theirs usually in the 12th grade or right after graduation if it comes to cosmetology, because they actually sit for the state board exam for Cosmo. A little about me. I've been in Baltimore City Schools for 15 years. I've served as a mathematics teacher, math department head, an assistant principal, and now I'm starting my third year at Carver as a principal.
Thank you so much, Principal Somerville. Now we're going to turn to one of our student panelists, and I am going to offer the question, what has been the most exciting about your involvement in Peer Group Connection this year?
Can we have our peer leaders just state their name before they give the answer to the question?
Absolutely.
Hi, I'm Alex Dunham. I go to Carver Tech High. The most exciting thing about being a PGC mentor is being able to have a strong connection with the kids, not being like their teacher, but being their role model, being able for them to look up to us, and like them knowing everything about us. Like our little, like my group, we have like an inside joke that we do sometimes. And just to get them, like, be able to talk to us, open up things that happen at home, they can trust us. And I was a little mentee in 9th grade, so I can see, like, the experience, all the hardships when, you know, you didn't have no one to talk to. You know, you had your mentor. So.
Thank you, Alex. And today is all about exploring how school-based mentoring programs in high schools can be used as strategies to help improve attendance, manage student behavior, and support the academic progress of students. And so I want to ask Principal Somerville, what ways have you seen PGC impacting these areas at Carver?
One of the biggest ways I've seen is watching right now the young ladies you have there are in 11th grade, so they came when I came. So when they were in 9th grade was my first year. So just the maturity that I've seen them grow into in the past 3 years. So they've been displaying leadership skills. They make connections with the younger kids, and the younger kids make connections with them that sometimes kids don't make with adults. So it's easier for them to talk to, you know, other students their own age, and they hold each other accountable. There's an incident last year when report cards came out, and the younger students, the 9th grade students, were looking for their mentors so they could show them their report cards. And it's just, I find it's another layer of support for the school. And we have a fairly large school in Baltimore City. Some of the schools are a lot smaller, some are a lot bigger. But we have about 850 students. And with so many students, it's nice to have that extra layer where students are holding each other accountable as far as grades and attendance and behavior.
Thank you. And so the next question is related, and it'll go to one of our student panelists. So we've been talking about improvements in students. So could you please share what you've learned through your PGC participation that has affected your attitudes, skills, and your ability to be successful in school?
Hi, my name's Andrea, and PGC has affected my attitude in a way of how I was really shy, and PGC brought my shyness out, and I'm kind of more interactive with everybody. PGC also has affected my skills because I'm more engaged in class and more focused than I used to be. And PGC has taught me how to be more focused and the importance of being focused. And PGC has also affected my ability to be successful in school because, like everybody understands, we're role models. We're freshmen. So if my grades are bad, they think it's okay for their grades to be bad, so I try to keep my grades up. So they do as well.
Okay. And I see head nods in the room from the other students on the panel, especially about this idea of being role models. Thank you. Principal Somerville, as you hear your students talking about the changes in them, what differences have you noticed in your school as PGC has been growing? And please think about the differences in your faculty members and also other differences you have noticed among students. And Mr. Moe, you can also join in and share your reflections as well.
Okay, I'll go and then I'll let Mr. Mo go. So, like I said before, this is an exciting year for us for PGC because right now, almost every student in the building has experienced it because we're in our fourth year. So our seniors this year, they were our first group of freshmen when PGC came to Carver. So what we've noticed is our attendance rate has improved in the school. We have less ninth grade failures than each year. Our ninth grade failures decrease. So we have every year less students needing summer school going from ninth grade to 10th grade, and we all know that ninth grade is, a big year for students because the highest dropout rate is usually in ninth grade. As far as faculty, we haven't actually had the same faculty advisors for PGC. So each year we have a new set of teachers, and I do know last year talking to the teachers that they really enjoy the team teaching. So I was talking to one of the teachers last year, and she was like, we should have team teaching like PGC for every class in the school. Unfortunately, we don't have the money to have two teachers in every classroom, but she definitely was talking about the benefits for the staff of having another adult in the room teaching the mentors. Mr. Mo, you want to pick up?
Yeah, just to add to what you said, one of the things that I've noticed, especially this year, is that with the help of the PGC mentors, there are less conflicts among the students, especially the ninth graders. I think up to so far, I can only count maybe one physical altercation between ninth graders, but nothing has happened because the PGC mentors are always ahead of us, and they are able to intervene before we even, as administrators, get the information. So that has helped a lot in as far as with the climate here at school with the ninth graders. And about the teachers, one of the teachers that went to PGC training, two of them actually, called me when they were in New Jersey doing the training and said, this PGC training that we have here, we need to propagate this to all the teachers at our school because they are missing a lot. So one thing that I've seen is that the PGC advisors have been talking to other teachers here at school about how they can improve their teaching methods and experiences with the kids because PGC has made them better teachers. And lastly, the staff here at Carver, being the fourth year this year, all of them understand what PGC is all about, and we have the buy-in here at Carver because a lot of teachers look forward to Wednesday PGC outreach. So we're at the point where everybody understands what it is and the impact of PGC here at Carver.
Thank you both. So to my students, one major theme of PGC is showing up, and we just heard Mr. Mo talk about, what he's seen in terms of the ability of students to show up and help with conflicts, and Principal Somerville talked about attendance. What have you learned from PGC about the importance of school attendance and consistently supporting your freshmen?
Okay, I'm Corey, and the major thing showing up is very important to attendance and constantly supporting your freshmen, because being a PGC leader means that you are a role model. So therefore, your showing up will make your mentees show up because they see that you care about them and you really want to see them do better. And when you don't show up, then it will really affect your mentees. Also, showing up is important because your mentees might not have people at home to talk to, so when they come to school and see that you're there, they're looking forward to tell you what happened at home so that they can get some, ideas of how to handle the situation or what to do better so that they won't affect them in school.
Thank you, Corey. Okay, so we are approaching the end of our panel, and so the last question I will offer is, what do you want the participants in our webinar to remember about how mentoring can help students?
Hello, my name is Ronasia. I want participants to remember that mentoring really helps. It helps you express yourself. Mentoring helps students share personal things and not be exposed. They also overcome challenges and hardships people go through in the real world. If they are having personal problems, they can come to us to talk about anything. We are here to have a great connection with each other and to motivate one another. We help guide them through high school. Peer group connection is a very powerful program. It allows mentees to be themselves and helps them meet people and connect with them in their own age group. Also, from my experience from PGC in ninth grade, it helped me become a better communicator. PGC also helped me become mature and to share my thoughts and experiences with them because I trusted them, no matter the topics or situations. But overall, I love being a PGC leader and I love being a mentee also.
Thank you. Thank you all for your thoughtful responses to the questions. And so we're going to pause here and see if our participants have any additional questions for us as a panel or about PGC as a whole. And while folks may be typing, I want to just hear a little bit more from you because all of you guys had PGC in the ninth grade, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and so as you think about that experience and now you being a mentor, can you share one of the things that you try to always do to help your freshmen?
Oh, all right.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, this Alex. When I was in ninth grade, one of my mentees, like, he didn't really come all the time. So, not mentees. One of my mentors didn't come all the time. So, it was only one of them. You know, it's two of us in a room. And so, she had to do everything by herself. Like, you could tell sometimes it was, like, frustrating because she was trying to get all of us to be quiet. So, me and my mentor, we try to communicate with each other, like, outside of school. Like, are you coming this day so I can have someone to substitute, like, or will you be there and stuff. Also, me being a mentor, I had a couple talks with some of my mentees, like they weren't doing so well a certain day, or something personal happened, and I had to let them know, like, you know, if you want to talk, then you can talk to me. And we had, like, some strong conversations. I'm not going to say it because what happens in the room stays in the room, but we had some strong conversations, and since then they've been participating and, you know, coming to me like, well, I've been doing this, so I'm going to text your phone and tell you about such and such that happened. I was like, all right, go ahead. So.
Well, thank you, Alex. And so the idea that partnership and communication are important, and you saw the impact of not showing up as a ninth grader, and you and your partner make sure that you all are present for your ninth graders so you can have those strong conversations. Okay. It looks like we have a question from our participants. They would like to hear you all speak about one challenging thing about being a mentor. Okay. You go first, and then be loud so we can hear you.
Okay. My name is Ronasia. One of the most challenging things about being a PGC leader or PGC mentor is being able, because they're just coming from middle school, so like they still got their little childish ways. So when it's time for me to get them together, it's like they like playing around and stuff. So that's when I get down and have a nice conversation with them to let them know what PGC is really about, so that they can actually connect with me instead of thinking that it's just time to always have fun and play games and run around and joke about everything. We also have to connect with each other to get that nice bond with each other. So it's like when we first started PGC, they really didn't even care about it. They just came just to be like, oh, we got snacks, or we're going to have fun. But now that some PGC sessions have been going on throughout the whole school year so far, they've actually been interacting with me, connecting with me, and our bond is getting very strong.
Thank you. And what you're describing is the stages of group development that you guys learn about. So your group was not formed in the beginning, but you've helped them to connect, and now they want to come to group and talk about important things. Thank you. One more response to that.
Okay. I'm Corey, and one of the hardest things I deal with in my group is kids not wanting to come because, like Juanita said, it's boring, or they think it's boring because we don't play games all the time. So I had to tell them or break it down to them, like, this is not just about having fun. We also got to learn how to get y'all through high school, like we had to do when we was in ninth grade. So, like, we got to tell them, like, you're not here just to play games. You're here to learn different ways to deal with harder situations. So it'd be kind of hard, but then it's, like, frustrating because they don't want to listen. They just want to play and have fun like that. So we try to make our lessons as fun as possible.
Okay, this Alex again. So it has been some tough times where, like, when Ronasia and Corey were saying they didn't want to, like, show up, or they thought it was just, like, all energized as in activities to do, but it was times where we had to sit down and, like, read a story, and you had to tell me, like, your emotions on it, and they didn't have, like, no emotions. They're like, well, I don't know what to say about that. Like, you know, you got to think outside the box in PGC, like, put you, like, you're in that person's shoes, so you got to really, like, you got to explain to them. Sometimes you're going to have to sit down and talk about bullying, or, like, you know, talk about suicide, or, like, those type of things. It gets serious, and they're not ready for that. They're still in that middle school stage, but they're already in high school, so they have no other choice.
Yeah, and you guys are helping them make that transition and creating a safe space for them to talk. And so we'll give we'll give you, Andrea, the last word. I'm sorry.
Okay. My name is Andrea, and one of my challenges in PGC is participation, because my freshmen are shy, so they don't really participate like that, so we have to bring them to the side and tell them, you know, it's okay to participate, you don't have to be shy and anything like that, but stays in a group, you know.
So a shy person, has a group of shy people. What has that been like for you?
Difficult. Because if I don't want to speak and they don't want to speak, you know, I have to step up, even though I'm super shy. I have to speak.
So it's really challenged you to grow. Thank you so much. So we are at the end of our time together. So on behalf of CSS and our participants, we just want to say a big thank you to all of our panelists for sharing your thoughts about your involvement in PGC. And I will turn it back over to Bishan.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, you were saying?
Thank you. Thank you, guys. You guys are engaging. You're inspiring. I have the biggest smile on my face. I assure you that you are more than enough for any ninth grader. And we just thank you so much for your commitment to this process. To our audience, this concludes our webinar, and I hope that you've enjoyed the information that was shared here, and I hope that you was able to see how school-based mentoring can be used as an effective tool to support ninth graders and to increase their academic outcomes. If you would like more information about attendance work for THREAD or the PGC program and the Center for Supportive Schools, here is my contact information, and I would be glad to connect you to the right individual. Thank you very much for participating today, and stay tuned for more webinars to come. Have a wonderful weekend.